We move on now to the next item on our agenda, namely item 6, Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund, Voluntary Supplementary Contributions and Other Issues. Dear colleagues, before I give the floor to Mr. Curtis, I would like to remind you that, in accordance with Articles 25.5 and 27 of our convention, it is the committee's responsibility to approve the voluntary supplementary contributions to the ICH fund provided by states parties over and above their annual assessed contributions. As you know, at its 12th session in 2017, the committee approved 2 new funding priorities for the period 2018-21. 1, strengthening capacities to safeguard intangible cultural heritage and contribute to sustainable development, to continue efforts to extend the reach and effectiveness of the Global Capacity Building Program, and 2, safeguarding intangible cultural heritage in formal and non-formal education, to spearhead efforts promoting learning and teaching through and about intangible cultural heritage in education programs. Voluntary contributions are intended mainly for the implementation of these priorities, but also some other activities that cannot be supported with the limited resources of UNESCO's regular budget. Mr. Secretary, the floor is yours to present this item to us.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Dear committee members, dear observers. In accordance with Decision 13.6, the Secretariat is requested to report on the progress on the implementation of any voluntary supplementary contribution to the ICH Fund it may have received since its last session. Furthermore, in accordance with Decision 7.20, the Secretariat is requested to report at each session on all forms of voluntary contribution received since the committee's previous session. The document before you provides such information. The document before you also brings to the attention of the committee the decision of the 204th session of the Executive Board in relation to the new set of management cost rates for special accounts. The committee this year is asked to decide whether to maintain the special derogation rate of 0% or apply a rate of 7%. With your permission, Madam Chairperson, I would like to ask my colleague Elena Constantinou to give us some more details.
Thank you, Tim. I would like to start the presentation by underlining that the document in front of you covers the period from December 2018 to September 2019. During this period, no new voluntary supplementary contributions were received to the fund for the 2 funding priorities just mentioned by the chairperson. However, since September 2019, several states parties expressed their intent to provide such contributions. The Secretary will provide you with further details after my intervention. However, some voluntary contributions to the fund were received other than those related to the 2 funding priorities. One contribution was received from Japan in 2019 to support the global reflection on the listing mechanisms of the Convention. These contributions were approved by you last year, the committee, by its Decision 13.6. China and Singapore provided in-kind support. And finally, 2 contributions from Monaco and Montenegro were made to the sub-fund to enhance the human resources of the Secretariat. Now, I will turn to the issue regarding the management cost rate to the ICH Fund. I would like to recall that the fund has benefited from a special management cost rate of 0% for all assessed contributions. 10% was applied to voluntary contributions. So 0% for assessed contributions, 10% for voluntary contributions. In 2018, the UNESCO Executive Board decided that multi-donor special accounts should be subject to a new rate of 7% instead of the previous rate of 10%. It also stated that necessary contributions with the necessary consultations with the governing bodies of states parties to the Intangible Cultural Heritage Convention and to the World Heritage Convention should take place to discuss how to apply this decision to assess contributions to the fund. I would like to remind you that following the Executive Board's decision, the World Heritage Committee recommended strongly that the current management cost rate of 0% continues to apply to the special account of the World Heritage Fund. The committee is therefore asked today to decide on which management cost rate to recommend to the General Assembly for application to all assessed contributions. The draft decision in the working document before you includes two options. The first option proposes to continue the application of the 0% management cost rate for all assessed contributions. This would be consistent with the practice applied for assessed contributions to the World Heritage Fund. The second option proposes a 7% management cost rate for all contributions, assessed and voluntary. In all cases, therefore, management cost rate will remain at 7% for voluntary contributions. Madam Chairperson, as the reporting period covered by the working document ends in September 2019, I believe that the Secretary of the Convention would like to bring to the attention of the committee some recent updates about voluntary contributions.
Thank you, Elena, for this very clear presentation. Mr. Secretary, the floor is yours to briefly update us on recent contributions and expressions of interest to contribute to the fund.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Dear members of the committee, I am pleased to inform you of several recent developments, positive developments regarding voluntary supplementary contributions following the publication of the document. Last month, 3 states parties expressed their intent to support the convention by providing contributions to the fund. The Netherlands contributed 100,000 euros to support the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage through formal and non-formal education in Latin America and the Caribbean. This is the first voluntary contribution that is entirely dedicated to the funding priority, safeguarding intangible cultural heritage in formal and non-formal education, approved by the committee in 2017. Sweden committed to support the human capacities of the Secretariat through a contribution of 500,000 Swedish krona, approximately 51,000 United States dollars, to the sub-fund dedicated to enhancing the human resources of the Secretariat. Switzerland committed to provide a contribution of 100,000 to support capacity building initiatives for the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage in situations of natural disasters. In addition to these 3 state parties, Azerbaijan expressed its intent through a letter dated 26 November 2019 to provide a contribution in an amount to be confirmed to support capacity building activities related to the safeguarding of living heritage in emergency situations. The Secretariat is very grateful to all 4 states parties for their generous commitment in support of our work. Given these developments, the Secretariat is proposing some amendments to paragraph 5 and 6 of the draft decision. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Madam Constantino, for this useful information. I now open the floor. Does anybody wish to take the floor? Azerbaijan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Azerbaijan thanks the Secretariat for the report. We also commend the countries that have provided already support to the implementation of the conventions through the ICH Fund during this current biennium, either through the earmarked contributions to specific country projects and supported the sub-fund for enhancing the human capacities of the Secretariat. We are very proud that through this mechanism, my country, Azerbaijan, has supported the capacity building projects in Bangladesh and Guatemala, which allowed these countries to address the needs in safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage and highlighted the role of this heritage for the broader context of sustainable development. My delegation notes the worrying decline of voluntary contributions that directly impacts the operational activities of the Convention and support to the two program priorities of the Convention in the context of the current and expected increase of expenditure of the ICH Fund on the international assistance mechanism. This is the situation that we are aware of now, and we will have to deal with more and more in the future as the impact and recognition of Convention will continue to grow. We believe opportunities to involve more private donors should be further explored. With regard to the management cost rates for multi-donor special accounts and mindful of the decisions taken by the World Heritage Committee, and we were part of this committee when these decisions were taken, concerning the management cost rates, our delegation would be in favor of keeping 0% for the management cost of the ICH Fund. We believe that the present measure will contribute to increasing the competitiveness of the 2003 Convention in resource mobilization in the form of voluntary contributions. Therefore, my delegation in favor of retaining option A. Thank you.
Thank you, Azerbaijan. Any other intervention? Philippines, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the options in the draft resolution, we would like to inquire with the Secretariat what are the implications of both options. However, looking at the and listening to the explanation, we prefer option A, just like Azerbaijan, the previous delegation. However, let me just continue. We're also looking at the importance of voluntary contributions, and we would like to inquire what measures are also being put in place to raise extra budgetary contributions. In this field, and we just want to refer our experience with the World Heritage Convention, when the Philippines was a member of the World Heritage Committee from 2014 to 2017, the committee piloted a partners forum at the sidelines of the committee sessions in Turkey and Poland, in which projects that needed extra budgetary funding were presented to donors. The World Heritage Committee is also developing a comprehensive resource mobilization strategy. We recommend that these two tracks be explored as concrete initiatives for future committee sessions. Perhaps a core group of state parties or the Bureau might want to develop this in its intersessional period. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Philippines. Please, Tim, if you want to answer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I believe the Philippines had a direct question which I'd like to address. And just to explain again, the management cost rate issue, the current system until the Executive Board was that 0% is applied to all what is called all the voluntary assessed. It's a bit technical. Voluntary assessed is the 1% of your contributions to UNESCO that you put into the fund as members of the convention. It's called voluntary assessed because it's voluntary in relation to your UNESCO membership, but it's considered assessed because it's assessed in relation to your membership of the convention. Up until now, that has always been, the management rate has been 0%. The voluntary supplementary contributions, up until now, has been, the management rate has been 10%, and there was a decision in the board to put all of such special accounts at 7% across the board because different accounts had different rates. Now, option A would mean you continue with 0% on your assessed voluntary contributions, meaning the 1% you pay as a state party to the convention, and the voluntary supplementary contributions would go from 10% to 7%. Option B would mean both of those have a management rate of 7%. Those are essentially the two options that are put forward. For the next question, about raising for the voluntary fundraising for the voluntary contributions to the fund, we are very aware. I must say that what we have been trying to do in the last year or two was to implement the leftover money that was in the fund. You will remember that the fund had money that was accumulating and that was not being implemented. Through the decisions of the General Assembly to increase the amount to be approved by the Bureau, and the intensification of processing of requests going through the Bureau, we're now getting to a stage where that's getting much healthier. That fund is being implemented, and we will see later that we're now starting to implement more that's coming in. That puts us in a much better position to start approaching donors and other countries, and that's indeed the intention. It is true that over the last 2 years, we have focused on implementing what was an excessive amount in a fund that wasn't being implemented. And I believe we can now exactly put that focus now on fundraising, and with this new team, that should help us go in that direction. That is at least the intent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Now I'll give the floor to Palestine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks our colleagues from Philippines for asking the question to the Secretariat. Now it is a little bit more clear. So if I understood correctly, in option A, the rate will be 0% for the asset contributions, but for the others it will remain on 10%. No? Please clarify it.
For the other, it will be reduced to 7%.
So this is the issue. So in A, it is 0% for the asset contributions, and it will be 7%, which is not mentioned in this option. Yeah, so it is not so clear. While in B, it is clearly mentioned for all contributions, it will be 7%. I think that it should be amended to make it clear that there are two rates that will apply in option A. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Indeed, I would say what is in the draft decision is correct. However, it may not be as clear as you like it, if that is looking at it now. Indeed, option A says for all assessed contributions, whereas option B says for all contributions, including assessed contributions. Fine. Please propose, if you could propose perhaps in writing a draft amendment, or if you wish us to try to propose one when we come to that. But if somebody wants to propose in writing, or we'll do it when the decision comes.
Thank you, Palestine. Any other comments? Okay, we can now move to the decision. Can we have the draft decision on the screen, please? So we're going to go through paragraph by paragraph. So paragraph 1, citing the document we have examined, do I see any objections? Adopted. Paragraph 2, recalling the relevant provisions of the Convention and the operational directives. I see no objections. Adopted. Paragraph 3, recalling our previous decisions. Are there any objections? Adopted. Paragraph 4, recalling the decision of the Executive Board impacting the management cost rate applied to the fund. Are there any objections? Adopted. Paragraph 5, expressing appreciation for the generous contributions received. The paragraph has already been amended in light of the recent contributions from Netherlands, Sweden, and Switzerland. I believe that there is no objection. Adopted. Paragraph 6, the paragraph is already presented in an amended form to reflect the fact that the new voluntary contributions have recently been received. Are there any objections? Adopted. Paragraph 7, encouraging the Secretariat to continue its efforts towards resource mobilization. Adopted. Paragraph 8, requesting the Secretariat to reassess its human resource needs. Adopted. Paragraph 9. There we have two options. Regarding our recommendation to the General Assembly on the management cost rate to be applied to the contributions to the fund, I see that two options are proposed, one for the continued application of a 0% rate, option A, and the other one for the application of a 7% rate, option B. Does any member of the committee wish to take the floor on this important issue? They already did. I think you already did, but... We already did, but they already did. Okay. Austria? And Colombia. Austria, please.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Our understanding is that some member states have already voiced their preference for option A. This is just to put it on the record that Austria would also recommend the application of a management cost rate of 0%. So we would move to delete option B and just keep option A. Can you please reflect it on the screen and delete? Thank you.
Thank you, Austria. Now I'll give the floor to Colombia. Por favor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Colombia está de acuerdo con la sugerencia que acaba de hacer la embajadora de Austria y quisiéramos entonces, en el orden de ideas que ya han manifestado otras delegaciones, incluir una pequeña frase al final de la primera opción que diga, entonces iríamos, lo leo en español, las contribuciones, exacto, después de patrimonio cultural inmaterial, lo que implicaría que el resto de las contribuciones permanecieran con un 7%. Que las contribuciones quedan en 7%. El resto de las contribuciones quedan en 7%. Estoy segura que esto se puede mejorar un poco si las otras delegaciones están de acuerdo, pero creería que es importante aclarar eso para que después no haya dudas con el presupuesto.
Okay, the Secretariat wants to clarify some aspects.
Just for it's a sort of English in the translation, would that mean, could we say that would mean that other contributions stay at 7%? But we don't say stay because they actually were not 7%. So they would, okay, so I'm just, endorse for all assessed contributions and apply a rate of 7% for all other contributions. Would that...
Thank you for the improving in English, team. Thank you very much.
So are you, Colombia, ¿está de acuerdo con esta propuesta de redacción del secretariado?
Sí, Colombia estaría de acuerdo y estamos dispuestos también a escuchar las sugerencias de otras delegaciones si tienen un mejor lenguaje.
Gracias, Colombia. Palestine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would like to thank again our colleague from Colombia to take the floor to propose a language. We agree with it. But here I would just suggest a little bit more enhancement. Apply a rate of 7% to all other contributions, and of course we support option A. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Palestine. Now I'll give the floor to Zambia.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Since Zambia has taken the floor for the first time, I would like to congratulate you for being given the opportunity to chair this session. And we also want to express our gratitude to the Republic of Colombia for the hospitality and the welcome that they've offered to us. You forgive my taking you backwards. I realize that the contribution from the non-assessed contributions was 10%. I haven't understood the reason why it was reduced from 10% to 7%. And if at all there was no substantial reason why it was reduced from 10 to 7, I would recommend that we maintain the 0% for assessed contributions to special accounts and retain the 10% to all other contributions, voter contributions. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, because I think in the document it's explained, that it's an executive board decision to harmonize all special account rates across the board. Therefore, it's not for the committee to decide on those. It's a UNESCO-wide practice to have a 7% across all special accounts. However, in that decision, they did recognize that for two special accounts, the World Heritage Fund and the Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund, there is an assessed contribution as well, and that it would be the governing bodies of those conventions to make a decision on that. Therefore, the 7% is not really, the reduction from 10% to 7% is not really a choice for the committee to make, because it's been made by the executive board for the whole of UNESCO. However, it has given the flexibility to decide on the assessed contributions, whether to keep them at 7% or to stay at 0%. And that is why it is presented in the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis, for your explanation. Maintenant, Arménie, vous avez la parole.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous sommes favorables à biffer l'option B et à maintenir l'option A, un peu comme l'a suggéré la délégation de l'Autriche. En tout cas, préservons l'option A. Merci.
Okay. I see a consensus around the proposed option A and around deleting option B. So, can we... Yes, please.
Can I just make one proposal, just technical, but to be double sure? In front of the second rate, we specify a management cost rate. It's not any rate that we're putting. It's the management cost rate. So that we have it up there, and then after the amendment of Colombia and Palestine, and apply a management cost rate of 7% for all other contributions. Would that be acceptable? Just to be more specific.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Curtis. Then I will read option A, as it has been amended. Who else? Zambia?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, again. I'm a bit concerned that we have an executive board that has decided to reduce the rate from 10% to 7%. In other words, we are reducing the amount of money that will be going to the Secretariat. In the meantime, we are concerned about how much money we need for us to be able to support the human resource that is at the Secretariat. Are we not just shooting ourselves in the foot? So I don't know, because we are further reducing the amount of money that the Secretariat needs for its operations. I don't know how we're going to resolve that issue. If we reduce from 10% to 7%, and they still go for option A. So in this regard, I think, in my opinion, option B needed further evaluation to understand what its implications are going to be on the funds that will be available for the operations of the Secretariat. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Mr. Curtis, please take the floor.
I thank the Honourable Delegate of Zambia and indeed understand completely his concerns. I would, however, point out that indeed, whilst it looks like it may be reducing the rate, that this is intended to improve the ability of the Secretariat to raise more supplementary contributions and to be more competitive with other agencies and funds and programs, and to have one harmonized rate. So the option B doesn't keep 10%. Option B is the 10% is in a way out of the hands because it's a special account of UNESCO. So our feeling is that by reducing from 10 to 7, we hope that it allows to raise more money, and therefore the overall money for the management cost of the Secretariat should still increase to make it more competitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. I will now turn back to the option A. It has been amended. It says, recommends that the General Assembly endorse the continued application of a management cost rate of 0% for all assessed contributions to the special account of the Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund, and apply a management cost rate of 7% for all other contributions. Can we adopt option A as shown on screen? Austria, please.
Sorry, a minor detail. If we very much agree that we have now consensus on option A, but just for a matter of sort of good order, option A needs to be deleted too.
Thank you, Austria. Since option B has been deleted, then option B doesn't exist, right? It's the paragraph 9. So we're talking about paragraph 9. Should I read it again?
Just, slow down.
Okay. Okay. Then we go through the adoption of paragraph 9 as shown on screen. Are there any objections? Adopted. Paragraph 10, requesting the Secretariat to report at our next session on any new voluntary recommendations received. Are there any objections? I see none. Adopted. We have now adopted each of the paragraphs, and we need to adopt the decision as a whole. Seeing no objections, I therefore declare decision 14.6 adopted as amended.